What makes Restoration Union's Element 111 RG so difficult? You thought it never happened, did you? Well, honestly, neither did I. But times change, experience grows, and I think it's time to give the people what they want. What they really, really want. It's been a while, so let's recap the rules. This is a ranking video where I use a scoring system from 0 out of 10, which 0 is auto and 10 being the hardest part of the level. We'll analyze each part by a percentage range rather than a game mode section, and at the end I'll rank each part from the easiest to hardest and give my own personal opinion on the placement of the level on the demon list and now the unrated demon list. And just like last time, this is based off of my own personal experience with the level. If you have a different viewpoint or have suggestions for other levels to analyze, leave them in the comments below. Just make sure they are physically possible. Alright, after 2 long years, let's begin. I'm bundling all these parts into one because realistically they all share the same problems, that being finding a rhythm. The only real difficult part is the quad spike at 5%, where you're basically doing a hard machine timing. You also have to deal with a pseudo quad spike jump at 3%, but I find that to be much easier simply because you don't have extra variables like blind timings or mirror portals to get in the way. The ball part can be hard, but once you find the click pattern, you can autopilot the ball part, and same for the sync clicks up ahead. Sure, the one blue orb can be annoying, but like with the sync clicks and the ball, it really is a matter of finding a rhythm. That's why this section scores low. All ship parts that require awkward movements suck so much, and this section is no exception. Similar to old Blade of Justice's first ship part, this part is unreasonably hard for no reason, if you go in for the first time. Except for the dives at 16%, right before the blue gravity portal, you're not going to have a hard time with this part after you build a consistent click pattern. I know ship gets very inconsistent, but if you're someone who is even remotely good at ship, you may autopilot through this part. Other than the transition to the next section, this part just requires learning a consistent pattern. The quad spikes. They make the first section hard, and it's the same story here. The ball right before the ship might be tricky to get used to, but the quad spike is literally the only reason this part is hard. If you remove the quad spike, you literally can do this blindfolded, and I'm not even kidding. Maybe if you're super bad at this jump at the ball portal, I guess it could be higher, but realistically it just involves building a consistent click pattern. This part has similar problems to 11% to 21%, where this requires a very specific click pattern. I find this to be a tiny bit harder simply because it is so easy to mess up the final orb click. It's definitely annoying, but it doesn't knock my shoes off in terms of being the hardest part. So normally I reserve this score for completely auto parts, but this section is so much of a joke that it deserves a 0 out of 10. If you die in this part actively, you're trolling. There's absolutely no getting around that. And if you seriously think this part is hard, I've got some crayons to sell you. They make a pretty good snack. Everyone claims this is the hardest section in RG, and I almost completely agree. The blind ship doesn't really do much when you can, again, form a consistent click pattern. But the biggest problem is the block ship. Whenever you want to get good at this ship, you normally have 2 issues: staying straight and aligning yourself up. Pico managed to use the hand ship to make this part easier, but you can do this with any ship if you please. But the hand ship stops this from becoming a 10 out of 10, simply because that ship is created so perfectly that you can line up the tip of the finger onto the breakable blocks and almost win. Once you get good at being straight, you can fluke this part really hard. Because with the hand ship, you've eliminated half the battle, which is alignment. The straight fly in question is about as tight as Acheron's mini ship straight fly parts, which is already super tight. So I would not call this the true hardest part. Hey, remember how I said that ball part in the beginning you can autopilot? Well, you can almost do the same thing here. The only real problem here is the orb spam, and that's about it. After that, you can apply the same click pattern you learned from the first ball and apply it here. Just do it longer and you win. Okay, so I know a lot of people do not talk about this part, and that's not for a good reason. The first block jumps aren't too terrible once you've gotten a good click pattern for each timing. The main problem is the orb spam. In the restoration version, there is a quad spike right in the middle of the orb spam. That might not sound bad until you realize that one quad spike is the same as a quad spike in 6%. making this go from about a 6 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. There is absolutely nothing you can do to make this jump consistent. Sure, you can get a bit more air velocity by just holding into the quad jump, but that does more harm than good since you're trying to get yourself as close as possible to the quad spike, which is already really consistent. At least with the block ship you can solve half the battle by just putting on the hand ship. With this part, you can't do that since you have to deal with a 2-frame jump on 240 FPS, and it's stupid easy to mess up. This is, without a shadow of doubt, the hardest part in RG, even after you learn it, which is the biggest difference between the block ship and this. The former can get consistent if you're a god at straight fly, while the latter never gets consistent regardless of who you are. Understandably, this is also quite hard because it is very inconsistent. After you've dealt with the gauntlet that is the orb spam parts, you have to also adjust quickly to make sure your UFO goes to where you want it to go, so you can make the 3 jumps at 60% consistent. If you don't do this, you will die and die often. Despite that, the 3 jumps are pretty easy to nail since all you have to do is do 2 double clicks for the first and third jumps, or a double click on the second jump, the latter of which I use since it feels more consistent. After that, all you have to do is a very awkward jump in between a 2-block spike gap, which is incredibly easy to mess up. But it's not as bad as the quad spikes. I'm with my fellow skill players on this one. This is my personal least favorite UFO timing to do. I'm probably being a bit nice with this one simply because the orb ship is almost free, but the gravity portal ship does take some time to get used to. It's somewhat easy to die to if you do not have a good click pattern, so it's best if you master it so you can fluke it every time. Still, not an offensive part. What keeps this from being the easiest part is the fact you have to learn a good pattern, and the fact that the second to last blue orb click you must do can mess you up very badly if mistimed, as you have to go as early as possible, but beyond that, you may fluke this part every time. With the remix I have, this part ironically becomes easier, and even without the remix, you can still make this part easier by making the last 3 clicks sync with the music. The rest of the part is self-explanatory as to why it's this high. Tight ball timings that can easily mess you up, along with some half spikes that can ruin your day. Just play this part for a bit and you may make it. Also, someone who is good at the Hell series will sweep through this part. This feels like a major downgrade from the block ship since you can easily sync your clicks to the music. It's also just a really self-explanatory ship part. Straight fly into some club step monsters and move on. Like with the final ball, just spend some time playing this part and you're good to go. For some reason, the restoration version made this part the scariest part in the level as it is very easy to die here. From a run, it's not bad, but if you're going from 0%, you may die here often because of how easy it is to mess up the UFO. If you think this should be scored lower, I can understand why, but realistically this part can kill you in a long run, mostly because until 92%, you have the most hideous UFO timings I've ever seen. Trying to manipulate through the tiny spike hitboxes so tightly is one of the most satisfying, yet brutal things you could do in a UFO section so far in the level. But after that, you mostly just have some nerve control in terms of trying to time each UFO click nicely. And the last ship part at 98%, I don't see myself dying in long runs, only in short runs if I mess up. And that's really odd for some reason. But this is definitely an evil part that once passed from 0%, you'll be satisfied you've beaten the level. Now it's time to rank each part in the level. Since I won't say each section out loud, I'll just list them here. Maybe you can order these differently, but this is what my money is on. But how about the difficulty of this level? Does it really deserve that top 10 spot like Bako and the real Mike say it deserves? No. In fact, this level is very overrated. If you beat this without the CPF mod, you're looking at a demonless spot of about number 30, just above Seri X Never Clear. But it could be just slightly higher, but only slightly. And if you're using CPF, it's even worse, making this level go right above Hard Machine, number 57 on the demon list. So, the truth is, the statement of Element 111RG is the hardest Arizona demon isn't a good statement to make. While yes, RG is a bit more frustrating to play than, let's say, Firework, RG has way too many easy parts, whereas the difficulty of Firework is a lot more spread out. I would go so far to say that there are more problems in Firework than the 3 quad jumps and the block ship in RG. There's the pre-drop in Firework, the second post-drop, the first post-drop, and the orb ship, plus the sheer length of Firework. Now, could this be easier than number 30? Probably, but my hardest, in which I can judge but I haven't beaten yet, is Unknown, and I think RG is just barely harder than Unknown. Just a little bit. So I'm gonna place RG at number 30 on the demon list, above Seriax Never Clear but below Psychopath. But with CBF, I put this at number 57, above Heart Machine but below Kenos. And on the UDL, I put RG at number 20, above Unknown but below the Catacombs. But with CBF, I'd put RG at number 42, above Fracture but below Cannon Bay. As it stands, the current placement of RG at number 3 on the UDL is very inaccurate. The only reason I can think of as to why it's that high is because of the real Mike, since he desperately wanted this level so high. But since he's removed from the community, I think you could say RG was too overhyped. So there you go, that's the long-awaited sequel to my difficulty analysis video. If you all really want more difficulty analysis videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to help the channel, like the video, and comment some random stuff below to help boost this video. I've got a ton of videos in the works, but that's pretty much all I have. See you later!